anyone who's played in a band could tell you some stories, and basically the only people who believe those stories are other bands.
Frenzy, there's a band we all know, don't we?
And we were doing one club on the seafront, and because they were all friends of ours there, I was just pissed as a fart, really bad. I was hammered, in fact. I was doing all right. The rest of the guys were just the same. And then it came to my solo. And we had a little monitor in front of me, and because we'd sort of set up a bit worse to wear for booze, all the leads were sort of straddled about all over the place, and it wasn't good. We normally take them all down. Come to doing the solo, and I stepped forward for my big part of the evening, and there's all these hot chicks there, and I was making off in front of them, and I stepped forward, and my foot caught underneath one of the leads, and I went ass over tit over the monitor, and the centre part of the bass actually caught on the monitor, and I pivoted over the monitor. I went smack straight down on my nose on the floor, on the dance floor, and all I can remember is pain and the howls of laughter from the punters.
The trouble with anecdotes is it sounds like you're taking the piss out of people who may not be in a position to answer back. But yes, there's been quite a lot of funny stories.
When we went back to Frenzy, I remember blowing them up once. There was a gig in Gütersloh in Germany, and I had a couple of lads with me, and we decided to blow them up basically. So I bought these bombs, well, they were big canallas, and at a set time, I was to the side of the stage, and mate was on the other side, and we had someone at the back. So Frenzy had been playing, 3 or 4 songs, and I launched my first bomb. Fuck me, Steve sprung like a cat. He went higher than his double bass, right? And I swear to God, when he landed, he had shit coming out the bottom of his trousers, right? And he was in total shock. And the guitar player didn't know what was going on. I think Whitehouse thought he'd been shot. And then I had another bomb left, so I thought, fuck this. So I bombed the drummer, yeah? And you can imagine the drummer's drumming, right? And to my absolute happiness, yeah? The drummer's trousers caught fire. I mean, I didn't actually mean that to happen, but it did, yeah? So he's playing the drums, you know, and he's like trying to put the fucking fire out with one drumstick playing. Whitehouse is still white with cack flowing from him and going right into him. By this time, the security had realised it was me. So they come and got me, and I really thought I was going to be like pitched into the audience, but luckily it didn't happen. The audience actually were cheering. So they put me back down, and I went backstage for a beer. Job done.
And Chuck's a good one for that, because he's a laugh, you know, so you can have a good time with Chuck. And I find you know, when Chuck's around, situations get weird.
Yeah! Stink bombs and Frenzy, they go hand in hand. Another one of my planned attacks, this time in Essen. I was in the joke shop, and you could buy these stink bombs, like, you know, medium, okay, or whatever. But I went for the deluxe. I mean, and they stunk. They stunk like you wouldn't believe. And what the plan was, again, we'd let Whitehouse like play around for a couple of 3 songs, and I threw a bomb by him where he was playing, and someone else let one off in the crowd at the front, and I got a feeling the drummer got one as well. I'm not quite sure. Eva. You can imagine Whitehouse, you know, he's giving it a big one like, and all of a sudden this smell from hell came, yeah? The crowd went back, he's sort of thinking, what's happening? And then he's putting faces like this.
I remember this one time we were in this studio. It was, the name of the studio was Walnut Bank Studios. It was quite a large place. And I was producing, I think, it was Jamboree. It was an album for the Frantic Flintstones. And we were down there for a couple of weeks, and Gary Day, there was loads of us down there. We were basically Chuck invited all his mates, and I had just done an album with Sonny West, so I invited him along. So there was tons of us down there, and we were all sleeping in this barn.
Jamboree, that's quite a favourite CD of mine. I mean, for many reasons, it was a good crack at the time, obviously doing it, and there's so many different musicians on the album, like so many guests and that, and we met Detroit Donny as we first met him, absolute nutcase, but a great harmonica player. Sonny West was down. We had basically a mission of the Sharks and the Flintstones. Hodge was involved, Ben Turner, Richie Taylor, Gaz Day, Johnny Pug, Wilson of course, yours truly. And no, it's quite it holds like fond memories for me, that CD.
The studio was on a farm, so they converted one of these barns into like a dormitory. And I heard that Chuck was really afraid of spiders. So I went out to a joke shop during the course of recording the album, and I bought this really realistic looking spider, and I got some fishing wire, and I tied the spider to the fishing wire, and I suspended it, and the barn we were sleeping in had like an apex roof, and it had like beams, exposed wooden beams going across all across the room. It was like a long room. So what I did is I went back to the when everyone was in the studio, everyone was busy. I went back to the accommodation, and I got this wire, and I rigged it up across all these beams, and I had the spider on a beam, and I had this fishing wire which you could barely see, and it was right down my end of the by my bed at the top end of the room there, and I had it so that I could lower it down, and it would be like a pulley system. I could lower down the spider. So we had just done a track in the studio, and we had this Italian girl. I don't know who she was. I don't know where she came from, but Chuck had roped her in to do some backing singing or something. And I remember the track was called "To the Devil a Son," and this girl had sung the backing vocal or whatever. And Chuck said, "Oh, do you fancy? We're gonna have a bit of a party now. Do you want to hang on? Come back to our barn. Come back to our barn for a drink." So she sort of agreed, and we all went back to the barn. Everybody was in on the joke except the Italian girl and Chuck. And so there was Gary Day, Richie Taylor, who Richie's a laugh. Everyone who was involved, Hodge, loads of us, all involved in this album. And I had previously arranged for them to all pay attention on a code word. So I come out with this code word, which was something like Rosebud. So I brought Rosebud into the conversation, and the minute I said Rosebud, like everybody looked at Chuck because they knew it was time for me to lower the spider.
As Mr. T, how do you do?
So we were there chatting away, and I basically couldn't think of a way of bringing Rosebud into the conversation, so I just sort of said Rosebud, and I remember Chuck looking at me in complete amazement, as if to say, like, Wilson, that was pretty random of you to say that, And I discreetly just started lowering this fishing wire.
I think it would take the entire length of any musician's career to tell you all about any funny anecdotes. I remember we had a van. It was an old ex-post office comma van, and it was so crap that when we went up hills, everyone had to jump out and run alongside, and so the thing wouldn't start rolling back down the hill.
And I'm lowering this spider down gradually, and as it's coming down above his head, it looked pretty real, and for whatever reason Chuck sort of glanced up and he saw this spider coming down, and Chuck did a somersault. He jumped so high, he flipped over, and the drink went everywhere and stuff, and freaked this girl out who he was chatting to at the time.
And no, it's quite it holds like fond memories for me, that CD. Along with the crash as well, and the police coming, and the Ouija board experiences, and the Jamboree was okay.
The Jamboree album was all like that. It was, I could actually write a book just about that couple of weeks in the studio.
And then there was another time it was a bass solo again, and this was with Frenzy in France, and it was a weird stage. It was like flat, and then there was this like little step up just at the back that my amp was on, my cabs and that. And I had a fucking great carton of orange juice, like double the size normally, and I was sort of hopping back as I was doing the bass solo, showing off like you do. And then this step arrived at the back of my heel, and I just went, whoa, did a Roy Williams, and I crashed down and I squashed the orange carton dead flat under me arse. And the members of the audience and the roadies just said that there was a fucking great plume of orange juice that just came out each side of me. And I couldn't believe it. I just sat there. The bass stayed upright, and I sat there with my fucking head in my hands. And I gave up, man. I had to go and change my gear. I was soaking wet.
You can imagine at a Psychobilly weekend, things do get out of hand. And there was a time I remember, I can't remember the band who had the Caravan, but it was a 6-berth Caravan, and someone phoned up security and said, oh, there's a party going on at Caravan number 106. So the security got in contact with me. They had these walkie-talkies, and they said, Del, you know this Caravan 106? I said, yeah. They said, we've gate crashed in on a party there, and there's 47 people in this caravan for 6 people. I mean, you can imagine it. And he said that there were bottles everywhere. He said we tried to find some furniture and everything was like matchsticks. He said the whole place inside was completely wrecked. He said, and when we actually got all of the people outside, all the psychos outside, we looked in and it was just like the bare shell of the caravan. There was nothing left inside. And the security interviewed a couple of the guys and they just said, well, we were having a good party and things got out of hand.
And one that has just sprung to mind is with Mr. Wilson. Old Al, he's a bit straight-laced a lot of the time, but occasionally lets his hair down. And we were in Spain doing a gig as the Sharks in Calella. I think it was actually the first ever Calella festival in Spain for Raquel and the gang over there. Great bunch of guys. And they put us up in a nice hotel, you know, on Calella is an excellent beach resort. It's just a holiday hangout and you get to go there for free. And we'd always stay there for 3 or 4 days. And we were hanging around one day by the pool. And we'd had a couple to drink and we're in and out of the pool. And then old Wilson comes. We were doing stunts and mucking about and getting told off. And then he comes running towards me. You had to be there. You probably won't get this funny side of this, but it's fucking excellent. And he's got long legs anyway, hence the nickname the long one. Comes running towards me and it's a real crappy slippy surface. I mean, safety doesn't come in over there. And then he's fucking whoa. He fucking lost his grip. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Star Wars thing, Return of the Jedi, when one of those scout walkers has all the logs come underneath it and all its legs are going fucking he could not stand up straight, and he had so much momentum he just went careering into the pool right over the top of my head, and because I was pissed apart in the pool as well. And that's one that'll fucking stay with me forever.
Another good one, we were doing a TV show with the Meteors, and on the way back the van broke down, so we all jumped out and we were sitting on the middle of the A1 doing Hawaii 5-0 like that, waiting for the AA to come along, and the police weren't too impressed when they asked us what we were up to. We just said we're trying to get home as quickly as possible.
You've got to imagine, when I ran this weekenders, you have to have a contingency for a bit of damage, you know what I mean? And I do remember that although I'd covered some costs for damage, a couple of these psychobillies, they were in the office with the manager, and the manager was more or less saying to them, look, you've got to pay something towards the damage, otherwise we're not going to let you go home.
There's been people like shitting themselves on stage. It's a good one. And then throwing their pants out the window, but forgetting to lock the bathroom door, so somebody walked in on it. So obviously it was then around the world within seconds.
And then there was another time with Mr. Wilson. I think it was actually the same event. We were actually, was it in Apremont in France? I can't remember. Anyway, gets a bit excited. Had one too many Jack Daniels on stage. Comes to doing his sort of solo bit. You know, we do the solos towards the end of the set. And as I said, ladies and gentlemen, on guitar, Mr. Alan Wilson. And I looked round, he's on top of the PA stack. He clambered up on top of the PA stack. And it come to his big part, and he played this great big power chord and jumps off the fucking top of the stack. And his bandy old legs wouldn't keep him up. And he just ended up as a crumpled psychobilly mass on the floor. He was like, it looked like he'd melted. He was just a lump with his Fender Telecaster resting on top of him. And that was the end of that, man. I couldn't play anymore. I was just creased up. Look round, I think I was Hodge playing with us then. I looked round at him and he was stitched. Oh, Jesus, memories.
Give me another couple of hours and a few pints and I could probably tell you thousands of stories like that.
But then once you're in the van, all sorts of fun and games to keep you entertained. One of the funniest ones, we were driving Colbert Hamilton, and he would sit in the back of the van. He would drink. But of course, every 2 minutes, I want to stop for a piss. And we're like, in the end, Colbert, we've got to catch a ferry. You're not stopping for a piss. And he said, if you don't stop for a piss, he said, I'm going to piss in this bottle behind you. I said, we're going to have to piss in it then. So I'm driving along in the van. All of a sudden, I can hear Colbert. The leather trousers have come down, and you can hear the piss going into the bottle. And all of a sudden, I can feel these splashes on the back of my neck. And I'm driving along, trying to get to Calais on time. I'm like, Colbert, stop it, Colbert. And I can hear the piss going in, and the splashes kept going. I was convinced I could smell it on me. I was like getting like hell, but I had to keep driving the wagon. Everyone else was laughing. It's only when I got on the ferry they told me that it was Alan Wilson flicking water from a bottle.
Yeah, I remember once we did a gig out in Holland on one of the now infamous tours that we used to do on a regular basis. Did the regular 1 hour set for the people, pretty well attended. It all looked a little bit dodgy because it was out in the sticks, if you can be out in the sticks in Holland. Anyway, they called us back for more. We did a couple of encores. They called us back for more, did another song. And then, you know, somewhere along the line you've got to leave it at that. But this particular crowd didn't want us to go. And we said, come on now guys, we've got to move to the next town or whatever and do the next show, so you've got to stop somewhere. And all of a sudden it turned extremely nasty. It got really, really bad where the whole crowd actually turned against us. They were more of a biker crowd than a rocking crowd anyway. We'd never played to a crowd like that before. And we just couldn't get out of the place. They were drawing knives on us. They slashed all of the tyres on the van, and as we drove away, we literally had to run away. We couldn't even go back to the hotel because they were waiting there for us as well. They were throwing bottles and they were smashing the windows in the van was smashed. And then they were chasing us on their motorbikes, and we managed to get to the police station, the local police station, and they were too scared to come out and help us as well. So we had to drive out of town on flat tyres, all slashed flat tyres, broken windows, thinking, geez, we actually went down quite well at the gig. You know, what would have happened if they hadn't have liked us?
There was a big brawl with some squatters at one of the gigs we did in Nijmegen, in the Doornroosay Club in Nijmegen in Holland in '86. And we had the big tour bus at the time, and because they were Klingons, you know, hangers-on that tried to get in for nothing, the management had like thrown them out and told them all to F off and whatnot. And as we were leaving, after they hung around after the show, and for some reason they took it out on us, and they were just throwing bricks at our tour bus, the arseholes. One of our roadies, Psycho Kev, opened the door to have a crack at them, you know, and we were all going to pile out and lay into him, and one of the half bricks just came sailing through the door and smashed into his girlfriend's face, and that was a pretty nasty affair, like, and our tempers all flared after that, and we went back to the club because they all pegged it on their poxy Dutch motorbikes and push bikes and whatnot. So we tried to chase him in the bus, couldn't catch him up, and then we turned around and went back to the club and found out if they knew about him, and they said, yeah, we know where they are, we'll take you to their house and stuff like that. So we all laid in wait for them, and when they came out of their house to get their new fix or whatever, their latest fix, we all laid into them and smacked the fuck out of them. And that was the end of that. Old Dennis Overweg, crazy Dennis from
Holland.
Holland.
Stop it there because your phone's
Yeah, I was trying to ignore that.
What a puffy ringtone.
Yes, that.
We had our first European gig, I think, was the headliner place called Wilder Heart in Berlin, which to us was a big thing. We all went out there, all excited, out there for the whole weekend, looked after incredibly well, just fed beer, went out on nights out. We actually ended up with Kofta, Mad Sin, and some illegal club on the outskirts of Berlin, all the rest of it. Did our gig on the Sunday, all great. Coming home, we were driving, we stopped off for something to eat. I don't know where we were in Germany. And we took off then, all happy as Larry, yeah, done a gig, yeah, thinking we're big rock stars, blah, blah. And everyone, driving down the road, everyone's there waving, oh, these are friendly in this town, you know, all waving. You know, got to come back here, this is great. Going down the road, thought, oh, they're all waving, got on the main road, yeah, everyone's still beeping loud. I thought, oh, there's something wrong. Pulled over, got out the back of the car, boots open, half the luggage is gone.
We drove some dodgy vans, but this time we weren't actually driving. I'd gone down to a gig, I think it was in Plymouth or somewhere with the Sharks, and driving back in the van, I'd had one too many drinks, I saw slumbering away. In fact, I was fast asleep, to be fair, and all of a sudden everyone come to a bit of a somebody loosened the wheel nuts off. They must have had an off night that night.
Luckily the guitars were still in there. We went back, I don't know, drove about a few miles, and I got out the car, I went running around these streets. We didn't even have mobile phones then, couldn't do anything. But eventually we managed to find each other, and they said, oh well, drove back another little bit. All the stuff that was out of the car had all been folded up and put on the side of the road on the pavement, and there was not one thing stolen.
And the wheel come off on the motorway, and the van had we nearly all got killed really.
I've been involved in 2 accidents actually. I mean, one I don't really want to talk about, it was quite bad. My brother Dulce, when he died basically, and some good friends of mine got messed up. And I don't really want to talk about that one, but I will talk about one where only one person got injured, which was Wilson. Not that, I mean, I'm not trying to say Yamu. Basically, we were recording the Jamboree album, and Gary come down in his new BMW.
It was like a two-door BMW thing he had, and we all piled in there, went down the pub one night.
And we've been recording the Jamboree, and we went off to some bar somewhere, some pub somewhere. And we've been there all night drinking, and when we finished drinking, time out, we drove back to the studio.
So we've come out of the pub and all got into Gary's car. We're absolutely shit-faced. And I mean, totally out of order really for even driving a car like it, but you know what it's like. And we come out of the pub, pulled up at the traffic lights, and this other car pulls up alongside it and eyeballs us. And these guys are in this other car. Well, that's like a red rag to a bull to Gary, you know. So Gary's like, you know, as soon as the lights have gone green, he's hammered off and left this guy in his dust.
So Gary was giving full gas, and we basically was driving around these strange country lanes.
Chuck's in the back. I think it was Richie, Chuck and Hodge in the back. I'm in the front with Gary. So of course I'm trying to put my seatbelt on because I mean Gary was totally out of control. So Gary's gone off like a demon driving down the road, and then he's turned off the main road down these lanes. It's about a 2 or 3 mile drive to the studio. And he's just gone, you know, I mean he's doing 100 miles an hour around these like blind hairpin bends and stuff. And we all knew we were, you know, it was inevitable we were going to crash.
All of a sudden Gary said, I can't hold it anymore.
I said to Gary, there's a real sharp bend coming up, and he, you know, and Chuck was in the back. Chuck had just gotten out of a bad wreck where people had got spammed. Do you know what I mean? Chuck was absolutely screaming in the back, telling Gary to slow down. But of course, Gary, tell him to slow down, he'll go faster, even if it means instant death. You know, so we come to this bend, and I mean, it was like a real sharp hairpin bend, and Gary just lost it. And I just remember Gary saying, "Hold on, I've lost it," or you know, words to that effect.
And basically, we hit this fucking corner and tack.
And I mean, it was terrifying. He shot off the road, going around this bend, and the next thing he smashed through this fence, up into this front garden of this house, and he's gone across the front garden, wrecking like, you know, plants and benches and ornaments as he goes, you know, and he's played in the side of this house, this old lady's house. So of course we're all like smacked into this side of this building, and it's a 2-door BMW. I'm in the front, and my head hit the dashboard or hit the windscreen or whatever, and I was like completely stunned and didn't know what planet I was on.
Alan's head hit the window screen, and he kind of knocked himself out, I think. Well, so he says, and he had a little bruise.
But then the next thing I know, everyone's going, "Get out, get out," you know, screaming at me, because all these neighbours and stuff had come out and they were all like getting a bit leery. So I got out the front, I was pushed out the front door basically by the people in the back. They all got out the front, out my side, and they just started running away. So we all just ran, you know. So we legged it across these fields.
Richie Taylor got out of the car, crack. He ripped his pants, and he had his whole trousers like open and his nuts swinging.
And next thing you know, all the neighbours had kind of formed into some like posse, and they were like vigilantes, and they all had torches, and they were all, you know, tracking us down across, you know, this is like 1 in the morning, you know, and they were tracking us down across these fields, and we were just like, we thought we were going to get done for drinking and driving or whatever big time, and the damage that Gary had caused. I mean, the car was a complete write-off, but the damage that he'd done to the house and everything, we just panicked.
We had like these vigilantes from the village with these like torchlights searching for us. Me and Richie went one way, which is not a good idea. Richie's like moaning about his trousers being ripped, and we were like legging it across these fields. Wilson and whoever went this way, and someone went this way, and basically we had to find our way back to camp. Camp was the studio.
Richie's a bit of a sharp dresser, and he had these real nice black pegs on, and as he's got out of the car, he's on the wreckage, he's caught his trousers and ripped the ass right out of his trousers, so he's moaning about that. I've got blood running down my forehead. We're running across his, and I'm moaning about the head, Richie's moaning about the trousers, and we're being chased. So the next thing you know is we've come as far as we can go across these fields, and we can see these torches coming across like in a line, coming across the field towards us, and we're led down in the long grass and we're shitting ourselves, and all this. So we've gone as far as we can go, and there's this huge, a 12-foot fence or whatever, so we thought, well fuck it, we got to get over this fence. We didn't know what was in there, but we just knew we had to get away.
And we climbed over it, and as I climbed over it I dropped down. Then Richie again, I ripped my cashmere jacket. So can you imagine Richie, like, he's always moaning anyway. He's ripped the balls out of his trousers, he's ripped his cashmere jacket. We've jumped into this, onto this land. And from there we're walking up this like a street, not a street, like a lane.
So next thing you know, we've seen these security men walking around with guns. Like army people, like army police or whatever, with guns over their shoulders and stuff, and we thought, well, what the fuck where are we, and then we've gone right through this compound, avoiding the security, and we've got over another big fence and out the other side.
We climbed over it, and as we looked back, it said Ministry of Defence.
We were in a high security Ministry of Defence compound.
So basically, we jumped into the Ministry of Defence, walked up there, jumped out again without getting observed. Bin Laden, It's as easy as that.
And by the time we got back to the studio, Richie had ripped his trousers again, or his jacket or whatever. He was moaning about that, but we were all, fucking laughing our heads off.
Then we made our way back to, I think it was in Kosan's, was it Kosan Studios?
Gary wasn't worried about the car at all, because he just said, I'll just phone the police and tell them it's been nicked.
I'm not quite sure where we was, but we were somewhere in the West Country. And anyway, we got back there, and then we started to reminisce, we come back, we thought, hey, we're alive. Apart from Wilson's bang on the head, And we wrote a song called, off the top of my head, I can't even think what it's called, but it was quite a good one. It was a country one.
But then the funny thing was, the next morning, Gary rang the police and said, my BMW was nicked last night. The police said, where are you now? Gary said, I'm at the studio, so next thing the police turned up. And of course they had perfect descriptions of 4 or 5 Rockabilly or Psychobilly kids, Now bear in mind, in this country village thing, no one else looked like we did at the time, They had perfect descriptions of us with leather jackets, biker boots, bandanas, it was like they had us banged to rights. And so the police just said straight away to Gary, look, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think you and you and you and you all did this damage last night. I think you were drinking and driving and blah, blah. And they took Gary off. Fair play to Gary. He put his hands up and said, look, it's nothing to do with the rest of them. It was just me, But what I do remember about Gary in them days was, because, he had a fair bit of money because he'd been working with Morrissey and stuff. When the police let him out, he went back to that, we all went back to the house that we crashed into. And by this time they'd taken the car away, and it was just devastation. It was like a fucking plane had landed in the front garden. It was just like the garden was all ploughed up, and this old lady was out there kind of trying to mend her fence and everything that we'd smashed through, And Gary just went up to her and he said, listen, love, I'm the idiot who did all this damage last night. And he put his hand in his pocket and he just pulled out a wedge of cash and he said, hope that covers it. And Gary was good like that.
first time we went to Europe, full stop, and our guitarist never been out of Doncaster ever. He's never been to London when we went to Germany on tour. Anyway, on the ferry he gets really wrecked on the ferry, and really, 24 cans wrecked. Anyway, he falls asleep, and he pulls up in this place in Belgium for a piss, whatever, and it carries on. I looks around the van. We're 2 hours down the road now. We're in Germany now, and looks around, and Sully, guitarist, I said, lads, he's not in the van.
Yeah, there's another time. This is another time I wasn't actually driving, but I was hitched a ride with the Texans. Good as gold. They got me in the car. They got the double bass on the top of the Ford Capri. We sat with the drum kit on the back, all the gear in the back, the hatchback. You couldn't fit another thing in, including us. We got to the French border. They stopped us. We had nothing. Didn't even have any money for cigarettes or anything like that. But they wanted the lot out. So Carew opened the back of the car. Everything heaved out. And all of a sudden, these French custom guys, they're going, nice T-shirts. And the Texans had a nifty line in coloured T-shirts. And they're sort of holding them up to each other, saying, oh, these are good. And one of them said to Carew in broken English, one for me. And Carew, rather than get the car searched through, he said, yeah, help yourself, mate. And he said, no. And he pointed to his three mates. So he gave them one each. And as we drove along, we looked into the rearview mirror, and they're all stood there holding their long tall Texans T-shirts, proudly displaying them to each other.
This is not in the van. It's just not here. So we screeched to a halt. Didn't know where we'd left him. The guy ain't got his passport. Don't know what country he's in. He's got no money. He's never left Doncaster in his life, and he's in a gas station in Belgium somewhere. It took us 4 hours to find him, and we saw a little speck walking towards Germany, and it was Sully. And he ran up to me. He nearly hit me, but he hugged me when he got there. And that's the first time I ever went to Germany. That's Sully, and he never travelled well, that lad.
Psychobilly scene would attract a lot of nutters that you would never get with like punks, skinheads. Skinheads were tough, punks were all about the hair, whatever, but maybe it's just the word psycho. But some of the guys we met along the way, a lot of them now are genuinely probably in like, psychiatric hospitals.
I'm the beekeeper.
But there are a few stories, I think, where they don't end quite so happy.
On the way back from a festival in France, I think it was in 2001, we were driving home after playing at a festival there, and we were involved in a head-on collision with another car. Our car aquaplaned across 3 lanes of traffic, hit a wall and bounced onto the incoming traffic. All I knew about it was I woke up in the wreck and we were being cut out of the car. I was airlifted out of the car. There's 3 other guys with me, and we all ended up in different hospitals in France. My injuries were a completely broken foot. My pelvis was shattered, and since then I've had to have hip replacement operations, 3 operations on the foot, and I have a metal plate in the side of my face, this all down here. With me was Paul Lambourne, Choppy. His injuries where he broke his back, and very nearly ended up paralysed. One of the other guys in the car with us was a guy called Danny, who actually climbed out of the sunroof and walked away from it. And the guy, Mark Richards, who was sat with me in the front of the car, playing drums for me at that time, his neck was broken, and all his teeth knocked out.
Right, the gigs and stuff were pretty mad and pretty hard going, but once a year we had the big rumble.
I do remember like, the Hemsby's, the first big rumbles, they were amazing. A whole little community, a whole town full of psychobillies. You got your own little house for a weekend, all the bands, every single thing happening all in one compound.
I thought, let's do a psychobilly weekend. There's all these rockabilly weekends everywhere. No one has ever done a psychobilly weekend. So the very first weekend which I ran, I went to the guy Tom Ingram at Hemsby, and I said to him, Tom, how would you like to do a psychobilly weekend? And he looked at me aghast and he said, well, I've never done anything like this. He said, but if you think it's going to go, what sort of band should we book? So I said, well, you've got to have the Guana Bats, and you've got to have Demented I'll Go, you've got to have the Quakes, you've got to have all of these sort of bands on the first one. So we ran this psychobilly weekender. The first one was at Hemsby, actually. It wasn't at Vauxhall that we ended up in the end. It was at Hemsby in Norfolk. That's the northeast coast of England.
Massive Psychobilly festival in Holiday Park.
And there was this big holiday complex with a big hall, caravans for people to stay in.
I think the Falcons were playing, so the Japanese guys there, Psychobilly Japanese, Cliff's out here.
Yeah, it blew us away really, just all these, it was Psychobilly freak heaven basically for 3 days.
And of course everyone was partying every night and lots of mess and stuff, but you'd expect that from a psycho weekender, wouldn't you?
We just turned up in Dave's Beetle, which had like bat signals all over it, bat signs all over it. And we went into the foyer, it was just colourful, just like there's some sights, there's red hair and sideburns and tattoos.
We played at the first big rumble. That was an amazing gig. I don't think we'd ever been exposed to that amount of people at that time. That was just after the album came out, so it was all happening for us back then.
Yeah, good fun. Everyone's on it straight away. That's what I liked about it as well. Everyone's partying straight away.
But once people realised that they could go and see all these psychobilly bands in the main hall until, say, 3 o'clock in the morning, they could then go back to their caravans or trailers, as you have in the States, and then they'd party all night. I mean, I don't know when anyone got any sleep, but we used to run these weekends from Friday night until Sunday night, and I do believe that people then crashed out on the Monday.
I don't know if anyone's been to the Rumble, you'll know exactly what I mean. It all goes haywire.
Few of those early bands ever dreamed that this movement would eventually take them and their music all around the world. Fewer still imagined that the scene would evolve, spread and still be popular over a quarter of a century later.
The band I'm in is the Caravans, but through that I got involved with a few other bands along the way as well.
Well, the Escalators, it was myself, Bart Coles, Woody and Mark, who were both in the Meteors at various times. And basically I'd gone through a period of ill health and I'd written some quite dark, depressing songs, you know, which reflected my mood at that time. So we were trying to be a bit more garagey, I suppose, you know, and do something different. Like we had like Mark and Woody, so we had 2 drummers, although Woody played rhythm guitar on some tracks.
Iguana Bats in the, I think that was in the early 90s. I was doing that for about 3 or 4 years. Since then I've played with a band called Number 9, a 3-piece rockabilly trio without drums called Rancho Deluxe. Currently playing in a ska band as well.
We're a global broadcaster. We're on Sky Digital. That means that many people in the UK and Ireland can listen to my show on the TV sets. Also, I do my show all over Europe on digital radios, World Space, and of course we're on the internet for the world.
So I seem to have spent the whole of my adult life really into Psychobilly.
The Tall Boys were a band which featured myself and Mark Robertson once again, and James Allen, better known to us as Jez, on lead guitar and Kevin Green on bass. Kevin was more of a sort of traditional British rock fan, like he was into stuff like the Beatles and the Who, presumably still is. And Jez was more of a sort of Hanoi Rocks, glam rock kind of guitarist. So yeah, me and Mark doing like the sort of more rockabilly, psychobilly kind of rhythm section, with Kev playing sort of good solid British rock and roll bass lines and Jez throwing in these glam rock lead breaks over the top. And we had quite of a, I suppose a spaghetti western sound would be the best way to describe it.
With Batmobile we have had a lot of luck, because we started at the right time with the right people, and we were all three of us were really going for it.
Well, we get calls from the States, Australia, the Philippines, all over Europe to my show every week. And if you want to check out our website, here's a good plug. It's www.caroline.rockers.co.uk.
No, we've played all over the world. We've had records in the lower end of the charts. We've sold a lot of records. Played to an awful lot of people, done our TV appearances, our radio shows and everything, but I think the greatest achievement Restless have had is actually managing to keep it going for as long as we have, which is now 26, 27 years or so.
Well, obviously the best memory for me would be recording an album. That's what every band heads to do, but quite enjoyed the fighting. Like everyone keeps talking about the fighting, forgetting about the music. I mean, like, I remember that night and Bally hit me with a bottle. So I retaliated. Next thing we know, we're fighting. Chuck Flintstones involved. Everyone's throwing punches. There's bottles getting smashed. 2,000-pound synthesizers going through the air. It was fucking brilliant.
Because we used quite a lot of
synthesizers. There was a synthesizer in the corner of the room. I distinctly remember it getting broken.
And it's kind of a drunken haze. Never had a proper job.
Johnson Family is basically me and Helen's shadow, and was sometimes Mark Robertson once again on drums, and now we have Ricky Braun on drums, and we come together every once in a while, and it's one of those things we do that it just clicks. You know, we've probably got more of a country sound than anything else I've done really, but it just seems to click when we come together.
Well, Sharks aren't really a gigging band anymore.
So I still work with all the guys. I mean, I still work with Chuck a lot. I've produced, I don't know how many albums for Chuck.
I mean, Al did a lot of gigging and that with the the Frantic Flintstones. And to be honest, lads, that's enough to put anybody off, isn't it? No, just joking, Chuck.
I love Chuck like a brother. I mean, he's I've known him quite a long time now, and we do a lot of business together in all sorts of ways.
I've got a couple of little side projects on the go. We've got Chuck and the Hoovers, we just finished that, me and Wilson. Hawaiian, desperate rock and roll novelty songs from the 50s, etc.
I think Chuck's a hugely talented guy with I think what Chuck's got is charisma more than anything, and when he goes on stage, when Chuck actually walks out on that stage and does his thing, you know, I mean, there's people that they just love him. They're with him all the way, and they buy into him because of the fact that he's for real. You know, he's not kind of some fake who gets up there and sings a few songs about a few drugs and stuff. I mean, Chuck, Chuck's lived the life. He's done it. He's singing from the heart. He's singing about his own experiences, and it's no secret. I mean, you know, Chuck's abused his body unbelievably over the years. It's amazing he's still alive.
We've been doing this shit now for close on 20 odd years, like, you know, and we've knocked out a lot of CDs, albums, etc. A lot of recording. I've left my little mark, and but the thing that I've enjoyed the most out of the FF is, like, I say travelling. I mean, I don't particularly like travelling, but I mean, there's all the good people I've met along the years, and good friends I've met with the posses, various FF posses here and there. And I've had the privilege of working with probably some of the best musicians in Rockabilly, Psychobilly, and that's been quite an honour really. And we've knocked out some great stuff. You know, that is why the FF is so diverse. I mean, we're not in one lane, so to speak. You know, we've got the whole fucking autobahn, and every CD we make, every recording we make, has got a different kind of theme. And I think I'm one of the only fuckers that can get away with it and be liked for it.
We get offered all the time big dough to go and do Sharks shows.
We've had some terrific offers to go to America and stuff, and I love America. I love Americans. I'm married to one, but I've no desire to get back on stage again.
We never kissed asses.
But I think it's pretty cool that three guys from nowhere in Holland are playing at the Hollywood Showdown, are playing, headlining in Brazil, have headlined, the Club Food have headlined about everywhere, did many shows in Japan, so I think that's pretty cool.
And there we were doing it in Hollywood, which was just bizarre. And then we went on stage, and the response was overpowering, to be honest. It was overwhelming.
We always thought, well, fuck you all, and we still do that. We still think that.
And we're just looking forward to going back now because they've really embraced frenzy over in the States. Yeah, it's cool.
Since I've been involved in the Rockabilly scene, I've enjoyed it immensely, and particularly the Psychobilly scene. And I've been lucky enough for the past 14 years to make a living out of it.
Done several tours of Germany, Italy, Scandinavia, go to America, 7 albums,
hopefully keep doing it until the day I fucking peg it.
I've just sort of started doing some solo stuff again, which is good fun, you know, sort of playing some of the old songs. Currently recording a new album with the Johnson family, which hopefully will be out by the time you see this.
I mean, Psychobilly has never left our lives, do you agree?
I think it is. Maybe if I hadn't got into Psychobilly, I'd probably be a rich man now. Married, 3 kids in a big house. I wouldn't have a double bass, so bollocks to it.
Keep rocking, cats.